There are times in a man's life where he has to make a confession. A confession that could impact on his life forevermore. And now is one of those times. I'm not sure I can say this easily, but it's got to come out. I have always loved and still love Jethro Tull. So, anyway, on with today. Melody Maker, March the 11th, 1972. And on the cover, we have Jethro Tull, who had just released, which at the time was thought of as their greatest album, called Thick as a Brick, which I've still got and still gets played quite often. And there it is. So, on the cover, Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick, or Rocks in His Socks. Mad Ian, the terror of the acoustic flute, leaps on stage at Portsmouth Guildhall on Thursday of last week and opens a new chapter in the Tull saga. Marvellous stuff. We also learned that Yes are in the throes of conquering America, currently in the middle of a sellout nationwide tour. Let's turn the page and have a look at the chart, shall we? The singles, number 1 is American Pie, which we're all heartily fed up of now, but back in 1972 it was an okay song. Number 2, Son of My Father by Chicory Tip, an absolute classic of the early glam rock genre. Number 3, Without You, Nielsen, we're all fed up with that now too. Slade at number 5 with Look What You Done. Number 7, Blue is the Colour by the Chelsea football team. Let's have a look down through there. Number 14, Telegram Sam, T-Rex. Some good singles in there, I have to say. The album chart, we've got Teaser and the Firecat by Cat Stevens at number 1. Paul Simon's first album at number 3. Electric Warrior by T-Rex at number 4. Bridge Over Troubled Water, Imagine, Harvest, A Nod's As Good As a Wink, all classics. The top 10 crammed full of classics. But what do we have at number 2? At number 2, up from number 4 last week, the self-titled album from Neil Reid. Who's Neil Reid, you may ask? Well, I tell you, he was an annoying little Scottish boy that appeared on Opportunity Knocks. He was number 2 in the charts though. Just Cat Stevens above him. Who would have thought? So let's have a look at the news page. The Doors to play UK concerts. Without Jim Morrison, obviously. Cocker fever in US. It's not dogs, that's Joe. And on to the next page. See, this is an interesting one. What? Cocker fever? Calm down, Jen. T-Rex, a heap of trouble. Now, a row has blown up between T-Rex and Uriah Heep over a concert in Chicago when both groups were appearing on the same bill. But T-Rex's management this week claimed the row was merely an attempt by Heep to get publicity by knocking T-Rex. I won't go into it too much, but if you read through it, it's pretty clear that what actually happened was that Uriah Heep were pretty impressive and the crowd were loving them. And Mark Bolan, although I love him dearly, threw his toys out the pram a bit and wasn't too happy about that, so insisted that Uriah Heep drop down the bill below Jackie Lomax. Anyway, T-Rex, a heap of trouble indeed. What have we got here? Captain Beefheart, the Spotlight Kid, on tour in the UK. First date, March the 24th, 1972, at the Colston Hall, Bristol. My birthday, my 12th birthday. But unsurprisingly, I didn't go to see Captain Beefheart. Next page, we've got a bit of King Crimson, a bit of John Kay, Steppenwolf, and then a 4-page ad for audience. And then poignantly here, we've got on the next page a half-page article about Badfinger, who of course we all know now just what a genius band they were. And this article basically is telling us how in 1972 the Americans appreciated them and we didn't. They were quite huge in America. A sad story, and those that don't know it really should look it up. They should be legends. It's a strange one here. We've got a full page ad for Barclays Bank, which the music papers in the 1970s weirdly always seemed to have full page ads trying to get young people to take out bank accounts. She can't say you never take her out for a meal. And then it goes on to say how young men who have got bank accounts can afford to take their girlfriends out. Possibly true. Who knows?
Rightly so.
Rightly so. Tull's Tommy. Chris Welsh reviews the live premiere of Jethro's new work, Thick as a Brick. Well, we've already spoken about that. Jazz scene, forget that. Your guide to the month's best albums. And in amongst there is Harvest by Neil Young, which of course is not only one of that month's best albums, it's one of the best albums historically ever. My favourite Neil Young album. I'm a great fan of acoustic Neil. I love electric Neil, but acoustic Neil just does it for me. Let's turn the page. The Loner, Stephen Stills. It was always said he wasn't overly popular. Can't say I know much about him. I did like Manassas. Of course, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young were superb. But I can't say I know too much about him, but he did seem to be a little bit of a curmudgeon as far as I can tell. The new pop singles. So, at top of the heap is Uriah Heep with The Wizard. Beautiful acoustic guitar paves the way for soulful lead vocals and widescreen epic production. It actually is a great single, The Wizard. It's a nice song. Underrated, overrated, I don't know. A lot of people would just say Jethro Tull, heavy rock, dinosaurs, but they were good. They're a great band. We've got Gladys Knight and the Pips, Bay City Rollers with We Can Make Music, which was before they went stellar. And then a lot of stuff I've never heard of. Midas Mould. Whoever were Midas Mould? Could they have been one of those junk shop glam bands? I don't know. But the Equals making a comeback. Eddie Grant rides again and says with some power, you might grow your hair long, but your long hair will make you black as me. And I sort of get the sentiment there. And let's move on again. In America, stateside reports on Yes and T-Rex. Blind dates. Again, this is the thing where artists would be played album tracks by various other artists and give their opinion on them. And we've got amongst this is Al Stewart listening to various artists, one of which is Budgie with Guts. Now, I know that Guts was the first track from Budgie's first album, and Budgie they were just one of the best heavy rock bands of the early to mid 70s. Anybody that saw them live was very, very lucky. This is, of course, pre-punk Mark talking now, not punk and post-punk Mark, but there's no doubt in Budgie were great. However, the first album wasn't particularly great. They didn't really ramp it up until the second, third, fourth albums. But Guts, what does he say? Here we go, at least it's honest. It's definitely the best thing yet, even if it is obvious. Well, Budgie didn't have much to go up against because there was Sue Vickers, the Jamaicans, and Laurie Dryden up to then, who I have no idea who they were. Right, so, albums, Thick as a Brick, Jethro Tull, a lot of Jethro Tull in this issue. Motown Memories, 16 non-stop Tamla hits, Don McLean, American Pie. Caught in the Act, which is the live page, we've got Jeff Beck, Dizzy Gillespie, Benny Goodman. Jesus, a lot of jazz here. B.B. King, Jazz and Blues. Randy Newman, Joni Mitchell, Rock and Roll All-Stars. And then we've got a centre page feature about censored records, and this has obviously been in the light of the BBC banning Paul McCartney's Give Ireland Back to the Irish. And it also mentions McGuinness Flint's Let the People Go. We've got various artists and industry people talking about the banning of records. There's one or two quotes here. Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople. The BBC seem more than a trifle uninformed in the records they ban. I mean, banning Leap Up and Down and Wave Your Knickers in the Air was total insanity. Was it, Ian? That was Jonathan King. I don't think it was really insanity, was it? Roy Wood. It's an incredibly bad thing because the BBC is so powerful that everyone needs them. George Melly. I'm not absolutely in favour of broadcasting lots of heavy underground records with 4-letter words in them at any one time. This is George Melly, the jazz singer, who was probably one of the rudest men around at the time and probably live swore much more than anybody else did. So, unbelievable that he came out with that. We could carry on there, it's quite an interesting article. Albums, The Doors, John Morgan, Mimi and Richard Farina. 4-page ad for Mungo Jerry. They were a huge band, hard to believe. People today think of In the Summertime and that's it, but Mungo Jerry for a period were massive. Jazz scene, forget it. Blues scene. Okay, but you know, we haven't got time for that at the moment. A half-page article about Bob Harris, the DJ, just being himself. Well, forget it, Bob, because I never forgave you for what you said about punk. And you really, really didn't like the New York Dolls, and we don't like that, do we? Jazz records. African Special, looks an interesting article. Spurred by winning the top prize in the BBC African Services Sound 71 competition, Air Fiesta, Kenya's leading rock band, decided to venture out of the African continent for the first time to try their hands in the European pop market. I wonder how they got on. Interesting. This is way before the world music boom. Oh, we got a page of ads. And a quick look tells me that it's loons, 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 and more loons. They're bloody everywhere. Velvet loons, cotton loons, denim loons.
What's a loon?
A loon?
I thought you meant loon.
No, not a loon as in a loony. A loon, or a pair of loons, like a pair
Pantaloons.
of... Billy, that's where it comes from. Pantaloons, Jan. They're flares, but they tended to have a very low waist. So if you had a beer gut like me, they were bloody hopeless because your beer gut hung over it. But men then were very slim. So their belly button would be just over the top of the button of the loons. And then they flare out with a bell bottom at the bottom.
Like women's jeans these days.
A little bit like that, yeah. So we've got lots of loons, Afghan coats. Oh, and there's even a short suede or leather jacket that looks a little bit like a budgie jacket. But budgie jackets haven't actually appeared yet. So is this the dawning of the budgie jacket? Country, no. Folk, no. Folk, no. Club calendar. Just throw a few bands at you. Jeff Beck Group at Waltham Forest Technical College. Jericho and Queen at King's College Hospital Medical School, Camberwell. Oh dear. Well, that one got torn. Genesis at Friars Aylesbury. Twice. America at Friars Aylesbury. Then we got classified ads. Music Market. And finally, and very briefly, onto the letters page. And we'll just feature one letter today. or two, because it's about the same subject. And it's clearly about Tony McPhee, the great, and I do say great and mean great, Groundhogs guitarist. Alan Davidson of Kings Park Avenue, Bankshead, Glasgow said, "My favourite guitarist musician is Jimi Hendrix. My second preference is Tony McPhee. Don't you realise, Dick Ellis, Melody Maker, March the 4th, that although they use similar effects, as musicians they are worlds apart. Tony is not copying Jimmy. He is doing his own thing." And to counteract that, Mart of Powis Road, Brighton says, "Dick Ellis's letter, Peter Frampton was quite right in stating that Jimi Hendrix will never be replaced by anyone, least of all Tony McPhee. We had the displeasure of hearing McPhee's barrage of noise here in Brighton the other week, and to compare this row with Jimmy's music is an insult to the great master." Well, in my eyes, there was room for both of them. So until the next time,